My name is Cliff Kachline. I was lucky enough to be able to start at the Sporting News in 1943 when I was 21. I had 25 years on the editorial staff of the Sporting News, which was then known as the Bible of Baseball. I later went to the Baseball Hall of Fame, worked there 13 years with the title of historian. Had a great time spending all of my life involved with baseball. 1940, the Sporting News came out with its first edition of the Baseball Register, which has year-by-year records of every player who's active at the time. And they had an ad in the Sporting News showing Frank McCormick, 1939 MVP in the National League, and I forget who the other player was, but I looked at McCormick's record and I saw a mistake. I was sure it was a mistake. Looked further and found 2 or 3. Wrote the publisher. He writes back, "Would you want to check these proofs?" I responded. Next thing you know, I get a package that would choke a horse, and he wants it back in a couple days. Well, I went through it, and I found a number of mistakes, and I believe I got $20 for that. Now, in 1939, $20 is a big week's pay for a young kid especially. During the majority of my 24 years at the Sporting News, my niche during the summer was the AAA leagues.
Okay.
I would get a newspaper from each of the 24 cities and then take the best of those articles, combine them in readable fashion, which enabled the readers really to keep up with young prospects who were coming up to the major leagues. In May of '69, April or May, the historian at the Hall of Fame died, and the Hall of Fame people had pretty well depended upon the commissioner's office for recommendations who to hire. And I was lucky enough, I guess, to have my name suggested. One of the first things I was involved in, now again at the Sporting News, didn't have much time for research. But one thing, 1944, Bob Feller comes back from the war. I was going to look it up. I forget how many strikeouts he had, and that was said to be the American League record. Well, some accounts showed Rube Waddell, an old left-hander with the Philadelphia A's in the early 1900s, had about 2 or 3 fewer than Feller had. But there was question whether that was the right figure. So with the help of the Sporting News editor, I got in touch with a friend and a newspaper man in Washington. We got play-by-plays, and we came up with a total for Waddell, which was 1 more than Feller had. And that still grates a little bit with Bob Feller. But that was one of the first feature stories, and it appeared in the 1947, I think, 1947 baseball. Oh, Waddell had 349 we came up with. Okay. So Feller had 348, yeah. I was entrusted with the job of writing the text for the plaques of most of those while I was there. I would get to meet them over at the hotel. Buck Leonard, the first baseman, beautiful man. He was one of those that I got to know pretty well. I did get to know a few of the others. It was a tradition when I started there for the Hall of Famers to have a special dinner, and we, the officers of the Hall of Fame, and there were only about 4 of us at the time, we joined them in this dinner. So we got to know and hear and see a lot of these guys. I think 150 World Series games. Of course, I still have the Cardinal red in my heart from my years there, although I really don't know anybody there anymore.